So, somebody. But that's the tax. That income, then you're gonna fix everything. Because sidewalk burn out, look like shit. Collect his money on that.
So, did you just bring it to the council and
I didn't tell him anything. He asked me questions about where the streets came from. I told him, Tony Arrowwood. I said there was a survey from council members. They picked or approved whatever streets are on there. He was just asking. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I did get how would you get back over? And I suppose you could need messenger and plan there, which I just really need to amend it.
The call to order the workshop agenda, March 17th, 2020 at 5:30 PM. Item number 1 is discussion of the 2022-2023 budget.
We'll start off with revenues. In the general fund, property tax increased by $35,436. This is due largely to the fact that property valuations only increased by 0.4%, and that $35,436 is strictly the 810 limit. Projections used to the general fund budget discussion was a 0.5% increase in valuations. So we're slightly under that, hoping that perhaps once some of the recent housing sales hit the assessors that we can get a boost in the years to come, but we'll see. We're projecting revenues for hotel, motel, and gaming tax at near pre-pandemic levels. We've seen the hotel, motel rebound quite well. We're putting that at around $250,000. I think at the peak in the last 4 years that I've been here, we were around 280. But that was when the Baymont was still putting people into rooms on a regular basis. So we're being cautiously optimistic with the 250 and hoping that it goes a little higher. And the gaming tax, that was one of the revenues that rebounded very quickly after the pandemic. As soon as they allowed people to gather in large places, you saw everybody wanting to go out and gamble. So the gaming tax jumped up quite a bit. Licenses and permits are where our franchise fees are receipted. So when you look at that line item, you'll see a large increase there. And that's due solely to the electric and gas franchise being receipted there. That revenue source is based upon half a year at 1.5% across the board on electricity. We indicated that when we passed the franchise, that in order to get close to the revenue goal that we wanted without overburdening two industries, that we would, in July, move to start the process of making it 1% for industrial customers and 3.5% for all other customers, which would result in a a total increase for residential and commercial of 1.5% and a total increase for industrial of 1% at that point. Federal and state grants include funds for the trail and airport projects. There are multiple trail grants, and that that trail is paid for 100% from non city sources. It's all outside. So we'll get going on that. We've got some agreements with the DOT and some engineering agreements coming up in short term here to get going on that project. The airport project, there was some confusion on the bills money, and that's billed by bipartisan infrastructure legislation. There was some confusion in that we thought that the money came in one time, and that it could be used without a match or in any such fashion for infrastructure out at the airport. What we learned is that it's actually multi-year, and that we expect to receive $159,000 for the next 3 years. And then we compare that with the entitlement money that the airport is supposed to get every year. So that would be over $300,000 for the next 3 years that we receive in grants. The money can be banked. The Airport Commission has looked at some various options. They still want to do a renovation project with the terminal, but it has changed a little bit as far as how we're going to approach that. And when that time comes, then we will explain to the council what the changes are and how the financing works. But we're still asking you to approve what's in there of $159,000 when we get to the expense side, even though that may change and it may not be in the next fiscal year that we do those repairs or upgrades to this terminal. Continuing on, the second half of the ARPA funds will be received in fiscal year 23, and that will be transferred in. The reduction in the employee benefits levy transfer is due to shifting salaries and benefits out of the general fund, with us paying less salaries and health insurance and shifting those to other funds. That reduced that transfer in because we have lower expenditures. Overall revenues decreased by $712,947. But when you take into account the different grants and insurance payments for the city hall, if you take out those line items from last year, our operational revenues increased by $273,259. Are there any questions right now on the general fund revenues? Well, we had in there, we had money that was coming from FEMA. We had $500,000-600,000 coming from FEMA. We had $700,000 or over $800,000 when you threw in some of the items for computers and other equipment for. What's that? It's a difference between ongoing revenue sources and one-time revenue sources. That's the difference between constant ones and correct. So what's the projection, or what happens to our constant? Well, that's why I said our operational revenues increased by $273,259. That's our operational revenues. It's very sure. Well, just a second here. I got it here in my summaries. Hang on. Right, but the one-time revenues, with the exception of ARPA, are for specific projects. Okay, so like I said, there was grant money for the airport, there was grant money for FEMA, there was the insurance money for this building. Those are all one-time sources. But our operational revenues, those not, ongoing revenue streams, annual revenue streams increased by $273,259. Okay. Any other questions? So on the special revenue fund, receipts from employee benefits, emergency levies, and local option sales tax are posted here for transfer to the general fund. So, well, and also in the employee benefits, some of that does go to road use tax this year. So what you see as revenues is going to be transfers out in those funds. Road use tax receipts are down due to the new population numbers and reduced per person rate. We've talked about that before. Federal grant revenues, when you look at the line items, are ARPA funds, and that's over $700,000, and that's the second half. We received the first half August 4th of 2021. We received the second half on August 4th of 2022. The transfers within that area are for 50% of employee benefits for street department and Keokuk economic development contribution. So we show even though the emergency levy and local option sales tax are within the special revenues, as well as the road use tax, we have to show the amount going into road use tax somehow, and that's why it's on the budget. Any questions on special revenues? I skip over some of the other ones, such as TIF and debt service, only because those revenues are defined by what debt service is defined by what we need, and TIF is dependent upon projections given to us by the county. I will say that our TIF revenues did decline slightly. Part of that is for the decertification of the downtown urban renewal. In the sewer department, class 1 and class 2 fees are relatively steady, with a slight reduction in class 2 fees based upon historical trends. Though what I will say is that the mid-year financials on class 2 fees show that they are on track to probably exceed budgeted budgeted estimates for this year. All I can say is that it depends upon usage and how many people are and what they're doing, and so what we've seen is the class 2 fees fluctuate in the past few years, and I budgeted down a little bit just because that has been the historical trend. You will see $1.8 million in proceeds of debt for the press project that comes in under sewer. Refuse collection fees reflect the increase from January 1 and the upcoming increase for July 1st. In bridge, the fees received are dependent upon the number of cars that are sent across the bridge, and we are estimating based upon the last few years of historical use, and it also depends upon Roquette production. If Roquette's not producing product to be sent by train, then they don't send cars across. Any questions on those revenues?
What is the press project?
That is the project of the wastewater treatment plant, when the, is it the sludge that comes out? So when the sludge is produced, we press it to squeeze excess water out of it. This will update the press to become more efficient and hopefully use less polymer, correct? And the polymer is what, as we know, is the expensive portion.
Okay. So is this saying that that project's going to put us in debt that amount, or am I reading that wrong?
No, that's what we're borrowing.
Okay.
That's what we're borrowing. Okay. We need to talk to the railroad about changing how things are done, because every year we are continuing to erode the reserves. And we've been trying to talk to the railroad. I can tell you that while they're willing to help us, they're not willing to help us that much. They don't want to buy a bridge. We actually offered it to them. So we'll continue to have to look at that. So in summary, what you see here is revenues by fund. You see that the general fund again is down in total. Special revenues is increased largely due to the receipt of transfers in for the road use tax for employee benefits. TIF, as I said, is down slightly. Debt service is what is necessary for our projects, understanding that we do take TIF money and pay portions of certain bonds that the council designated as TIF projects. And so that brings down the amount that we actually have to levy for property tax. The capital projects, there, what you're seeing is in the current fiscal year, we had transferred some money from tax increment financing in order to reduce the deficit in the capital projects. We're close to having gotten that all taken care of. So we're in a much better shape in capital projects fund. The permanent fund is the perpetual care money for the cemetery, and that is the interest on the fund. No, that's one half of or portion of the lot sales. I'm sorry, portion of the lot sales. So every lot that we sell out there, a portion has to go into the perpetual care fund, and that's what we're estimating. It usually runs around that amount. I know that in 2021, we budgeted upward because a lot of people were buying plots when we thought we were running out of spaces. So it jumped up from what is normally around $4,000. And the proprietary fund, which is sewer, sanitation, and bridge, you can see the jump there in total revenues, but that includes the 1.8 million in proceeds of debt. So when you go by receipts by the type of source, you'll see that we're bringing in over $5 million in property tax, and only $2 million in some of that is in general fund, unrestricted general fund money. The rest is for debt service and for employee benefits. Other city taxes, that includes your local option sales tax, hotel, motel, and franchise fees. The replacement tax, the state of Iowa does something, and I've never quite understood it, why they do it this way. What they do is we set what we say, what we want for property tax, They then do a calculation and subtract out a portion that would be paid by gas and electric companies. They then reimburse the city for that portion. I don't know if the state then somehow gets a portion of it or what, but that's how that's what the replacement tax is. Licenses and permits is up slightly. Use of money and property, that is any rent that we collect, any interest on any funds that we receive there. Intergovernmental, that includes road use tax, that includes any grants. Charges for services, those are all related to the proprietary funds. Miscellaneous is the various, in every various department where there is something that isn't specific to any of the others. We always put in a sale of property of $1,800 because I think almost every year the police department sells a piece of equipment, and that's where it comes in at. Then you see our debt issued and then the transfers. And so total revenues with transfers and bonds and debts, or our bonds, is $28,569,310.
Are we not expecting to get more renters into the SID Center for the use of money and property? It's gone down.
We are, but when we're charging a total of maybe $8,000 a month or a year, $8,000 a year or $9,000 a year, we're expecting that. But until what I'm being is very conservative in that when I put this in, we didn't have any other prospects. I've now been told we've got 2 more prospects in there, but I can't change upward. I can only go downward when it comes to the budget at this point.
So are we losing money maintaining it without renters?
Are we losing money? We're highly subsidizing it. Let's put it that way.
Okay. And then fees and city tickets, where are those at?
Those are in, let me check here real quick. There. That would be under miscellaneous.
Okay, and it went down drastically?
Well, understand that also what was also in miscellaneous for last year was the insurance payments for the building,
And
where we received our insurance reimbursement.
yeah, so I'm safe to assume the 20 and 21 though were less than there too, while bringing in lots of new sources.
Right, and again, that's related to the insurance reimbursement for this building.
The actual from 2021, the 1,289.
Right, because we didn't receive the full 700,000. We had budgeted 1.8 million, but we didn't receive the full 700,000 for the first half of the construction. So we had to split it into fiscal year that we're in now. That's why you see that large amount there for the miscellaneous.
Oh, I meant so on the actual line, what was it projected before insurance money? I'm just wanting to see what the difference would normally be.
Okay.
Because I thought it would go up.
Well, give me a second here. I'll look in a couple places here. If you took out the insurance payment for the reestimate on fiscal year 21-22, that gives us 1,661,000.
So we still went down $400,000 with, even with the new revenue.
Yes, and again, I'm looking at also the FEMA refund in there. So if you take the FEMA refund of approximately 550, $1.1 million.
So it kept us stagnant,
Correct.
even though we projected to bring in almost 80 in fees from one department, I think 30 in another.
Well, what we did is on that, we put the court fines at $40,000.
Mhm.
But we had a current budget of $40,000 because we amended it, amended those revenues in for the current year. Okay? So that's already built
Okay.
into that.
Okay.
Okay?
And I think it's 80 in fire fees.
What's that?
80, I think, was the number or rough ballpark of the other fees.
No, well, the number on that one was always around 40,000 for the court. For
Oh, yeah.
the fire fees.
Yes.
Fire fees was larger, but the fire fees comes in under charges for services, I believe.
That's where I was wanting to see that there was an actual increase in revenues.
Yeah, what you're seeing is over last year's budget was 16,000 and we're now budgeting 65,000.
Okay, so we just went on a more conservative amount. I understand. I just want to make sure.
It's more conservative because at the time that we were making these estimates, the revenues hadn't started coming in and we were having difficulty getting some people on board to get the revenues.
Okay.
Any other questions? No, I didn't. The other thing is that while we had one proponent of the ordinance, when he made his first pitch to us, said what 150, 300,000 that he thought we'd get from those. I think in discussions with the police chief, we're talking maybe more 3,000. Yeah, at $50 a pop.
100 is
Or 75, I'm sorry, 75, yeah. No. I mean, in order to get to that 150,000, I mean, you're talking, what, 7,500 permits? We're not even gonna come close to that. So,
Or backfill money from the state, that's all done, correct?
no, we are slowly being weaned off of it.
Right.
And so.
It hasn't ended yet.
It has not ended yet, but we're slowly being weaned off of it, and they gave us a worksheet, and that's what's in the line items as far as that. We're on the 6-year reduction instead of the 4-year, so this would be this. I think we would have 5 more years after this, yeah, but it's reduced each year, yeah.
I didn't know if that was figured in that replacement tax.
No, it's that doesn't come in under replacement tax. That actually comes in under intergovernmental. So, and looking at our levy rate goes up about 40 cents per thousand from 18.55 to 18.95. The reason for that is largely due to adding the road use tax benefits in there. And then the historical trend. And what you see is the orange line is the 100% valuations. Due to the residential rollback and the industrial rollback, the blue line is what we can actually tax upon. So if somebody's house is valued at $100,000, we get to tax on 55,000 of that. And that changes dependent upon the value of farmland. For the industrial and commercial, we can only tax on 90%. So if the commercial property is worth $1 million, we can only tax on 900,000.
The assessors are expecting a good increase in 2023.
I would certainly hope so, given all the house sales at asking price. So, this is our a graph of our levy. We have had at times reductions, but we are creeping up. At the end of this, I will present a scenario after Councilmember Wynn had asked me to check on being able to borrow more than $1 million, and I will have some good news on that. So what I think is by doing some different things, we can keep our levy right around where it is, so it won't fluctuate greatly. Where does our property tax go to? The blue is general fund, and that is the 810 levy only. Oh, I shouldn't say that. The 810 levy, the insurance, and the insurance levy, property casualty levy. The orange is special revenues with most of that being transferred into the general fund. And then lastly is debt service. And this is at the request of Councilmember Marsden. She asked, what is our portion, the city's portion of the overall tax collected by government entities. You will see that our property tax collections are 42% of any homeowner or any taxpayer's tax bill. We're 42%. The school district is 36%, county consolidated 18%, but then there's also the county assessor of 1%, so there's a 19% there. And then SCC is at 3%, and then the others are not significant enough to show up on the graph. Any questions before I move to expenditures? Okay, under expenditures for the general fund, total expenditures are reduced by $1,439,355. Capital was reduced by $1,273,107, due largely to the City Hall project coming off and FEMA projects. Operational expenses were reduced by $166,284 due to shifting salaries and benefits to other funds and shifting $95,000 of street lighting costs to road use tax fund. That's a brief summary. I didn't go into each department and their expenditures. Does anybody have any specific questions? The insurance ended up paying for all of it. So contents and building and everything. Other than certain incidentals such as office supplies and things like that. But otherwise, everything else was paid for. In road use tax fund, total expenditures increased by $426,488. Capital increased by $240,500, which includes $150,000 for engineering costs for Prices Creek Bridge, though we believe that that is will be under that for the engineering. And $275,000 for a street sweeper. There is still $100,000 in there in the capital for seal coating and road maintenance. Operational expenditures increased by $185,988, and this was due to the shifting of salaries and benefits and $95,000 of street lighting costs over to the road use tax fund. Though the portion of benefits is offset by levying for those benefits. And the amount being transferred into road use tax for those benefits is $151,000. So the additional operational expenditures is roughly 35,000 additional dollars. It was all coming out of the general fund.
Why did we move it?
Why was it not?
No, like, why are
Why
we
did we
moving
shift?
it? Because this is the one where we would be able to use the money to fix the streets, right? So if we move the street lighting there, then that's $95,000 less that we could use in the streets.
It was one of the items that came up as part of the general fund committee to shift a portion of street lighting over to road use tax. Vast majority of cities that's where they will pay their street lighting. The committee recommended that for at least 1 year, we try the $95,000 and see where we're at in both the general fund and road use tax.
Is the $95,000 a portion, like you said, or is that the total amount?
That's a portion.
Okay. What's the total amount?
Hang on here a second.
Half.
That was, well, half was based upon before. Yeah, it was on the current cost, but then the cost went up because they started charging us for more poles that they didn't know that we had. Yeah. So the total for street lighting is $124,500 out of the general fund and $95,000 coming from the road use tax. And that is based upon the number of poles that Alliant Energy says are for our streetlights. And there was a substantial increase because they did an audit of the number of poles in town and found out that how many, Robert? How many poles did they find?
There's an additional 700.
Right. Any other questions in road use tax?
Yeah. Will you go back one slide? Sorry, Cole. Can you hear me? Sorry. There. That street sweeper for 275
Right.
is the trade-in value. Are we getting a trade-in value? You said 50,000. What was it? That trade-in?
That is calculating in the trade-in value, I believe.
It is? The 275 is?
Yes.
Trade-in value with it?
Yes, I believe so.
'Cause-
Robert, did you calculate for the 275, is that the total price or the price including trade-in?
I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, that's what I thought. I knew there was a trade-in, but I just wanted to, if it was 50,000, whatever it was. Okay, cool.
Okay, ARPA funds, this includes a second transfer of funds to the general fund of $283,967 for lost revenue. Other disbursements include $300,000 for the 600 block development as part of incentives, $200,000 to Southeast Iowa Regional Planning for LMI housing rehab, $150,000 in this year and $150,000 in next year for dilapidated housing, and that includes either demolition or if we believe the structure is sound enough, perhaps putting some money into the structure in order to get a contractor to perhaps then be interested in being able to finish out the project. $50,000 for repairs and upgrades to the Verity Museum, and $4,000 for the Grand Theater to make sure that bats don't get in there anymore. Capital projects funds, there's $20,000 for sidewalk repair program, $30,000 for cemetery street repair. This is for the purchase of concrete, while Hickey Construction donates the labor and equipment. $140,000 to finish the brownfield grant, as we're not going to get it done in this fiscal year. And $74,487 for the SID Center operations. Everything except for the sidewalk repair program is financed by tax increment financing. Questions?
Where the money is coming from for the SID Center?
Tax increment financing.
Okay.
What is the brownfield grant?
That is the LChem site out on Carbide Lane.
Okay. I remember talking about that.
So this will get us through the phase 2 environmental. And while we're doing that, at the same time, there is right now a lot of grant money out there. And they're giving grant money for cleanup as well. So we're going to start our process of application for cleanup money, and we're hoping that that we get a lot of money out of that. So, okay. In proprietary funds, water pollution control and sewer operations increased by $161,867. Some of that is due to the shifting of salary and benefits into the sewer fund. But then there is also some increased costs for operations at water pollution control. The debt service in the fund increased due to the press project bond. We pay that out of sewer fees, and so that is comes out of here rather than in the regular debt service fund. Sewer capital includes $455,000 for the vac truck and $495,000 for the lift station project. Refuse operational costs increased by $139,724 due to salary and benefit shift and increased tipping fees. The tipping fees came in after we had already set our increases for January 1 and July 1st. Robert and I are still trying to have some discussions with Great River Waste, and Robert's doing a great bit of research to find out exactly where all of the refuse is coming from, and that we're taking in a much larger area than just Keokuk, and that is contributing to the increased cost of transferring the refuse to the landfill. And so we're trying to come up with some pitches that we can give to the board of Great Regional Waste, and point out, while you like the revenue from the tipping fees down here, you have to be able to accept the cost of actually hauling it if you're willing to take and not charge extra to out-of-state haulers. Bridge operations increased slightly, and as previously discussed, they are outstripping revenues. And so then expenditures by fund, you'll see that the general fund expenditures are down by approximately $1.5 million. Special revenues are increased due largely to expenditures of the ARPA funds. TIF matches revenues in. The debt service is down slightly, but again, that's dependent upon what we need to pay. Capital projects are up only in that in the re-estimate, what you see is a reduced portion of the brownfield grant that we're shifting over to the current fiscal year. Permanent is for the library trust, and proprietary, you'll see the large increase there, due quite a bit to the number of capital projects being done in those departments. So our overall expenditures go from $27,950,705 to $30,463,146. If you look at expenditures by function, public safety is down a little bit because of the change in capital projects. Public works the same. Cultural and recreation, you see an increase there, largely due to the trail project. Community and economic development, an increase, and that is indicative of the brownfield grant and ARPA and some ARP funds. Our general government is down by $1 million, but general government also included the FEMA project and this project. Debt service, again, down depending upon what is needed. Capital projects is the uptick is due to the brownfield project. So community and economic development does not include the brownfield project. So I will look at that real quickly to see what the uptick is there. Business type activities, that is the waters, that is the sewer funds, the sanitation, and the bridge. And the large increase there is the capital projects. Transfers out is dependent upon money coming from TIF to various funds, and from special revenues to various funds. And so again, our revenue, our expenditures are up from $27.9 million to $30.4 million. Any questions? Right. So let me take a look here real quick. Oh, all of the ARPA funds go into that, count as community development. And that's that's a total of $1 million. ARPA funds count as oh wait, no, that comes in under community development. Yeah, community development. Yeah. You're right, but what it is the state wants us to put it into a program, and it doesn't matter where we spend it, the program is community development. So we're spending some of it out of special revenues, and we're spending some of it, and we're transferring some of it to the general fund. But the whole $1,037,967 in ARPA funds that we're going to spend next year are in the community and economic development program by the state. Some of it is being expended in this current fiscal year, and $150,000 is being held in reserve for next year for the housing demolition. No, some of it is being expended in this current fiscal year, so it doesn't show up there. Yes, yes. All right. Expenses by program, you'll see that the largest expenditure is in public safety, followed by the gray area, which is health and social services. The orange is public works, or the dark orange is public works. Culture and recreation is the yellow. Capital projects is the deep orange. And public works is the brighter orange in there. Yeah, I'm looking at a much smaller.
There you go.
Yeah. So, anyway, you got a much better view of it than I do, because on my screen that's teeny tiny. So does anybody have any questions on the graph at all? Okay. So then general fund expenditures by program, expenses, yeah. So general fund expenditures by program, you'll see that public safety is again the largest, with culture and recreation and public works to follow, and then the green is general government. So this is the balance sheet. What you'll see in the general fund is that we increased the bottom line by $73,732. In special revenues, we decreased the bottom line by $636,863, but that includes our expenditures in ARPA, and road use tax. In TIF, it shows a negative balance of $48,133, largely due to that there are some delinquent taxes that aren't being paid. But I also found a entry error in the debt service, whereby I was transferring too much from TIF to debt service. So actually that deficit is more around $20,000. And again, if we get some of the delinquent taxes in, then we could either breaking even or increasing the bottom line. In capital projects, again, we're showing a deficit there. Staff will continue to look at options in order to get that into either an even or a positive balance. In the sewer fund, you see a reduction in the overall balance of $826,537, due largely to capital projects, though we still have a healthy balance there. In refuse, you see a negative balance of $126,203, but that's including the $130,000 for the recycle packer truck. And as stated at last week's meeting, that project or that purchase will only be made if we believe that we can either pay for it or other sources, or that we are having a better year in refuse than what we're projecting. So if we do not make that purchase, we'll at least have a positive ending balance, but we may still have to look at adjusting our rates once again because of the increase in the tipping fees, basically eating up the two increases that we have in this year. In the bridge department, you'll see that we're reducing the bottom line by $267,000. And again, staff will be trying to work with the railroad to come up with an equitable solution. But if we don't do something soon, we may have to look at abandoning the bridge altogether, because we cannot continue to operate in this manner. I did split out road use tax from the special revenues. You will see that we reduced the ending fund balance by $334,000, but that includes all of the capital projects. And so that reduction is due solely to capital projects. Any questions on the balance sheet? Okay. Since we are a service industry, what I did, and you can go look at it in greater detail in the larger packet. What I did was calculate what the cost of different cost is for personnel in each department, and that's on average what based upon the number of employees and the personnel costs within that. But again, you can take a greater look at those within there. And then that's all I have. Are there any other questions?
So when looking at the total bottom line on revenues versus expenses, this budget is approximately $2 million in the negative.
Correct. So if we go back to that, 1.8 million in the negative, yes, and 800,000 of that is capital projects in the sewer department. 207,000. It includes the 207,000 in refuse. Though if we don't spend the 130, that's reduced. The 267 in the bridge, and then also understand that special revenues, we're expending funds that we received in this year, but are expending in next year with ARPA.
So do we have enough in reserve to absorb that? And then what have the last few years trends been for that number there? Is this negative something that's continuing on from previous years, or is this?
It fluctuates. It fluctuates from year to year depending upon project. What I'll tell you is in the bridge department, there's always a deficit. But this year we are spending. We have a couple of large projects in the sewer department that is showing that reduction in the bottom line. What I will tell you though is that we do have a large contingency fund in the sewer department of $450,000, so that if there is a emergency project, we can pay for it. In the past years, we've used very little out of that, so that tends to just go right back to the bottom line. That's a question I have to ask people that know more about railroads and law than I do. You're absolutely right. But at some point, we either have to charge them significantly more than what we're charging them now, or we're going to have to abandon operations. We just cannot continue to go as we have been. I don't know if we have to maintain a certain amount, but we'd like to maintain a certain amount for maintenance. What I can tell you is that I think we looked at it, and the last estimate I had on doing just painting was $8 million.
Council was given a book here a month or two ago that stated the condition of the bridge. And you can look through there, you can see the deficiencies that are there every year that we don't have the funds or have not spent the funds.
What we're projecting for end of fiscal year 22, $1.8 million. Yes. Yes. That's what we're projecting for end of next fiscal year. When we get to the item or the public hearing in the council meeting, I'll continue to answer additional questions. But we are at our time.
I'd like to call to order the Agenda City Council meeting, March 17th, 2022, 501 Main Street, 6:30 PM. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, roll call.
Crenshaw,
Here.
Altaid, Garcia.
Here.
Wynn. Hellenthal,
Here.
Andrews.
Here.
Marsden.
Here.
Bryant,
Here.
Greenwald.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Item number 4, mayor's correspondence. If you haven't eaten your corned beef and cabbage yet today, visit one of the great eating establishments here in the city of Keokuk before St. Patrick's Day is over. Please eat, drink, and shop local. The Great River Players will be performing Leaving Iowa on March 18th and 19th at 7:30 PM and Sunday on the 20th at 2:00 PM at their building at 6th and Johnson. On Saturday, March 19th at 1 PM, join area health instructors at a fundraiser called Fitness for Kindness at the First Christian Church. All proceeds will go to the Keokuk Homeless Support Group. McNamara's Band will be celebrating 70 years of being together as a band and playing great music for our surrounding area on Saturday, March 19th at the KC Hall, 6th and Main. The doors are open at 5 PM. Corned beef, potatoes, and cabbage plus dessert starts at 6 PM, and that's for $10, and the music starts at 7 PM. The high school sped department will be hosting a music trivia night on Saturday, March 19th at the Odd Fellows Building at 1720 Blondo. Tuesday, March 29th, 2022 is Vietnam Veterans Day or Peace Day. There will be a service in honor of all Vietnam veterans at the Veterans Memorial in Oakland Cemetery at 11 a.m. Please come and show your support for those who served our country and those who gave their lives so that we can all live ours. And last but not least, happy St. Patrick's Day to all. Item number 5, citizens' request. If you have a request or you need to talk, you need to come to the podium, state your name and your address, and let us know what you need.
Hello, my name is Jim Rauner. Address is 1415 High Street. And I have a concern about the status of the city's sidewalks. For one, the clearing of snow this winter was appalling, citywide. I'm in a wheelchair. I have no problem getting around it. I'm the only one in town in a wheelchair that doesn't have a problem getting around when there's 3, 4, 5 inches of snow on the sidewalk. I don't know what the city's going to do. Fortunately, I think it's done this year, but it's a recurring problem every winter. Another issue is parking on city sidewalks. Discount Tire 10th Main is a prime example. They daily park their vehicles on the sidewalk on North 10th, but they leave North 10th open. The trucking company's 700 block of Johnson Street is another example. They're routinely parking their semis on the city sidewalks and leaving the streets open. The third concern I have is I understand, I believe in December, there was an announcement put over the local news TV shows about the city having funding to install a walkway along the Mississippi River. That is all well and fine. How about installing a sidewalk to North Park Drive so the pedestrians can walk to Walmart? You can't get to Walmart on a sidewalk in this city. You can't get to Aldi's on a sidewalk in this city. They just put a brand new Arby's in that area. You can't get to Arby's on a sidewalk. You can't get to the hotels as a pedestrian. I don't have any problem going through mud. The city, the stores don't like it when I do that because I take the mud with me. But my wheelchair should be the exception, not the rule. So, thank you.
Are there any other citizens' requests? Okay, we will move on to item number 6, consent agenda. Minutes of the City Council workshop and regular City Council meeting of March 3rd, 2022. Minutes of the Safety Committee meeting of March 10, 2022. Minutes of the special budget meeting, cash receipts and treasurer's report for February of 2022. Resolution approving a liquor license for Angelini's Pizza Incorporated, 1006 Main Street, effective April 1st, 2022. Class C liquor license with an outdoor service. Resolution approving a liquor license for the BPO Elks Keokuk Lodge, number 106, 2200 Lincoln Avenue, effective April 1st, 2022. Class A liquor license with Sunday sales. Motion to pay the bills and transfer listed in registers number 5260 to 5262. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
On to item number 7. Now is the time and place for a public hearing for the fiscal year of 2022 to 2023 annual budget. A public hearing notice was published in the Data Gate City on March 4th, 2022. I am opening the public hearing at 6:37. Do we have any comments?
On behalf of the staff of the city of Keokuk, I present the fiscal year 22-23 budget. The document is perhaps the most important action taken by the city in any given year. The budget should reflect the goals and priorities of the city council as well as the needs and wants of our citizens. While not all inclusive, I believe the budget is an accurate presentation of the council's vision for Keokuk. Property values, both 100% and taxable, increased over fiscal year 22. However, the trend of the increases remains flat. Since 2014, valuations have grown on an average of 0.5% per year. This year's increase of $3,778,282 is only 0.4%. The growth rate is insufficient to meet the rising costs of materials and supplies. To offset the lack of substantial growth in valuations, the council has passed several measures to generate new revenue. These include gas and electric franchise fees and fire service fees. Revenue from these sources are only rough estimates based upon information from the utilities and the number of fire calls that could be assessed service fees. Revenues for the general fund decreased by $712,947 due to the absence of one-time sources, City Hall insurance, FEMA, and FAA grant. However, operational revenue streams, those not from one-time sources, have a net gain of $273,259. This is less than the projected increase from the new revenue sources. However, we must take into account the reductions in employee benefits levy transfer due to shifting of salaries and benefits out of the general fund, as well as the reduction in lost local option sales tax that cannot be collected on gas and electric sales as part of the franchise fee. Total expenditures for the general fund are $11,394,055, with $1,640,640 in capital projects and purchases. The bulk of the capital expenditures is the Riverfront Trail project of $1.2 million. This project is fully funded from grants and donations. Other capital expenditures are being paid from the 2021 bond reserves. These bonds were sold to fund the fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 capital expenditures. The general fund is expected to have a $73,732 surplus for fiscal year 23. Three funds are expected to have ending negative balances. The Capital Projects Funds has received additional funds from TIF reserves in fiscal year 22 to reduce the negative balance, and the ending balance is being lowered, has lowered the negative amount by almost $600,000. TIF will be in a negative balance due to delinquent tax payments. Staff hopes to pick up some of the delinquents during the fiscal year to address the shortfall. The Sanitation Fund is projected to have a shortfall of $126,303. However, the budget includes the purchase of a small Packer truck in the amount of $130,000. Staff will monitor the funds, and if actuals are in line with projections, the truck will not be purchased. The council instituted a $2 a month fee increase in January 22, an additional $2 a month fee increase on July 1, 2022. Staff had estimated these increases would be sufficient to meet operations and capital expenses for the next couple of years. However, Great Regional Waste Authority raised the recycling fee by $1.50 per household per month the day after our first increase was approved, and there is additional tipping fees that are coming down the pike as well. This document would not be possible without the assistance of the department head level staff. They have helped provide good estimates and measure their requests against the impact of the available funds. All staff members have shown due diligence in controlling expenditures while exceeding service levels. I thank them for their hard work. During the workshop, I had promised a discussion. If you look at this worksheet, at the budget meeting of last week, Councilmember Wynn had asked me to see what borrowing $5 million for street repairs would do to our general fund. When I had suggested the $1 million borrowing once every 3 years, it was based upon some projections I did as part of the general fund expenditure and reduction meetings, and did not look at all of the debt issuances. I asked our bonding agent to provide projections on $5 million, and I worked that into this chart here. So what you'll see going across is each of the current general obligation bonds with the total principal, the total interest. And then what you'll see is the issuance of a $5 million bond in fiscal year 25, a $5 million bond in fiscal year 27, and a $5 million bond in fiscal year 31, all for street projects. I placed those in there in order to minimize the effect on the debt service levy rate and the overall rate. So you see the first line column or the first box column, you'll see the debt service, that even with the issuance of the $5 million in fiscal year 25, the debt service levy is reduced. And then in 2028, even with the issuance of another $5 million, it's reduced. And in 2031, it does jump up, but stabilizes after a couple of years. The reason for the differences depends upon the amount being paid on the other bonds. So you see that when we get down to fiscal year 34, the debt service levy continues to drop as other bonds fall off. I then did a calculation of the other levies and projected based upon historical differences as to what their effect may be on the total levy. What you do see is that it would be projected to increase next year and the year after as we add more of the road use tax benefits levy to the benefits levy, but then it begins to stabilize and it fluctuates up and down slightly, but always stays under $20 until you get to fiscal year 42. Then it goes slightly over, but again, it begins to decrease as bond issuances roll off. Staff can go ahead and begin, planning for this, understanding that each of the projected $5 million bonds are based upon current conditions as far as interest rates and finances, so that can change. It's also making some assumptions as far as taxable valuations and changes in insurance levy or employee benefits based upon his history. So again, those can change. What I will caution is that if it's necessary to bond for any other project or purpose, that will either reduce the amount we borrow for streets or increase the impact on the levy. So I know I'm presenting this just tonight because I just finished it because I didn't get the projections from the financial advisor until late on Tuesday, and I wasn't here a full day yesterday. So I've just finished this up today. So I know you didn't get a chance to look at it, but any questions?
Is that the soonest we could possibly do it? I think just,
We can do it sooner, but what you're going to do is you're going to jump the debt service levy and the total levy by $1 in 1 year.
okay.
Because I did play with that. I put that first bond in 2024 and in 2023, and it immediately jumped everything $1.
I just think it's something that people are obviously really pressing, and 2 years is 2 winters, more decay.
If the council wants to move it forward, just understand that, and again, I can move these numbers up and down. It's real easy to do. But just understand that it will have by doing it before that time, it will have a large impact on the levy.
I'd like to make a statement too. You also have to look at, we have not done a road assessment for a good many years, so we would need to figure out where we want to start at. We would also have engineering that would have to be done before we could start a project. So there's going to be some time frame in there. No matter whether we said we was going to start today, we would still probably be easily 9 months to a year before we'd be ready to do anything at the earliest.
Okay.
And just to clarify as well, Cole, if we were to move forward with some kind of plan similar to this for streets, it would have an impact on other bonding, like you said. So for example, the public safety building, which has come up multiple times over the last few years, it could have an impact on that.
Correct. Now, one advantage of planning this out, we can show the stability right now of the levy, so that if the council did want to proceed with a public safety building, we can show again what that impact would be, and be able to again, once we get that worked in there, this should stabilize given what we have. It's just that it's the handling of the increase, and that's the problem is trying not to jump it too quickly. And it's kind of like pulling off a Band-Aid. Do you do it slowly or do it quick? Either way it's going to hurt, but It's just what's the impact?
I think you made a good analogy when you referenced a Band-Aid, because I think that's what we've been doing with our streets, is just a
don't-
Band-Aid.
I don't disagree with you.
And I think if this is something that we can bond the 5 million for, you said that we could get quite a bit done as far as the mill and fill
Correct.
and make a real impact on our streets. I think this is something that the citizens of Keokuk would get behind if they can actually see some improvement of where their tax dollars are going.
Sure. And so, as I stated at last week's meeting, that we're going to begin the CIP process as soon as this budget is done, and this can be worked into the CIP.
So we had talked last time about if we did this borrowing of the $5 million, that it could potentially like raise the property taxes and everything, because then we're going to have to start paying it back, right? So I just wanted to make sure that if we do borrow that, then we will expect to see those increase.
It depends upon, and if you look at both the first box column and the second box column, there are changes in each year. And for the first 3 years after the 2023, for the first 3 years, you'll see an increase. But then there's a decrease, and then it fluctuates. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to stop the fluctuations from going like this to making the fluctuations like this. Okay, and it creates a stabilization in that the tax rates, again, until you get 2039 or 2040 or somewhere around there, it's not until then that it approaches $20 and goes over that. So we're staying between $19.20 per thousand to $19.96 per thousand. It's just, as I said, we could shift these in different ways. It's just how much impact does that have in the overall levy?
I just wanted to make sure, because I want everybody, like the citizens, to understand that if we borrow this money and then the property taxes increase, I'd like to get their input. I mean, sure, they're probably going to be on board because everybody wants us to fix the streets, but I also want them to give us their input on, yeah, that's okay.
And we can certainly hold public forums
Yeah.
on this, and there'll be multiple opportunities once this is worked into the CIP and into the regular budgets and everything, to receive that input. What I would suggest that we also do is that we do educate them on where their property taxes go to, because
I think that's a good idea too, because a lot of people, they're just saying, where's it going? We can't see where it's going.
right. The comments that you hear most often is we pay so much in taxes, how come our streets aren't fixed? And my response always is right now, your tax dollars don't go towards the street, but if we borrow money, then that portion of your tax dollars are going to pay the bonds that fix the streets.
And is there any way, if we do like the road survey to see which ones we need to fix? One thing I thought of was, we're not just going to concentrate on like one ward, right? Because if we're going to borrow this money, is there a way to guarantee that each ward is going to have some improvement?
What we will do is as part of the street assessment,
Mhm.
we will look at the condition of each road and kind of give them a rating. What I will tell you is that we can work out a schedule whereby perhaps certain roads that have failed, now that we have, $5 million, perhaps when those have failed, we could do more to them, and those could be in certain places. Staff will try to present as equitable as possible, understanding that in some wards where road repair has been done, they might see less until other wards are caught up.
I would just like to see everybody benefit if we can do that.
We certainly will try to be as equitable as possible.
We done that in 2000. Every older person give a suggestion of what they needed in their ward, and the Public Works Director and the foreman over the streets. They were all in the meeting, and everybody had some choices about what to be done.
Well, I think that the process that staff is suggesting right now is that there is a critical analysis of the streets. What I would say is that what might be what usually comes out of those analyses is if you're rating them from 1 to 5, with one being excellent and 5 being lost, what you are going to want to concentrate on are the 3s and 4s, because if you can do something with them that now that is short of a full reconstruction, you can get more of those done and save them before they get to lost. I believe that when you get to a loss, you're looking more at a reconstruction, which costs more money.
Well,
I say this just simply because it's been my experience with other communities that have instituted these programs, that's the roads that they've concentrated on, and they have gotten criticism back of, why are you not fixing this road? This road is horrible. Well, that's because that road is so horrible that it's going to cost more money to fix. But if we can go and work on this road and this road, we can fix more of it because it's less cost than fixing that road that's lost.
well, you also look at the traffic too, because we done some on High Street, Concert Street, North 15th, North 16th, Blondo Street. And then you get on the west side of town, or south side of town, we done 14th Street Hill in front of Hickey's, and some on Timea there and that.
I think the most traveled streets should be fixed first, no matter where they're at in the city, the ones that everybody uses, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this is, and as we build the inventory, we'll work with the council to develop the program.
Can we borrow $5 million and not take it all at once? Have a $5 million line of credit? And because you probably won't do $5 million worth of roads in one year.
Probably not, is what I'm going to tell you. Is what it is we'll probably just have to bond for the 5 million and then spread it out over the 2-3 years until we issue the next bond.
So do we have any more comments on the city budget? Can we move on that? Okay, City Clerk, do you have any written comments or objections that you have received? There being no comments and no objections on this matter, I will close the public hearing at 6:56 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Item number 8, now is the time and place for a public hearing on a proposed granting of a franchise to operate an electric transmission utility within the city of Keokuk, Iowa. A public hearing notice was published in the Daily Gate City on March 4th, 2022. I am opening the public hearing at 6:57 p.m. Comments?
ITC Midwest has transmission lines within Keokuk's corporate limits. ITC had previously operated under the Alliant Energy franchise and was grandfathered in. When council passed the revised franchise with Alliant, ITC lost its grandfather status. A new franchise agreement with ITC specifically is needed. This is transmission lines only. They don't service any customers. They've been doing the work down Messenger Road.
Do they service Alliant? Are they transmission lines bring the power to the town and Alliant divvies it up, or?
I don't,
It's passing through?
I think it's just passing through because it gets them down to the river. And then they have lines going down the river. But they don't have any residential customers or any commercial customers. It's purely transmission.
So this isn't going to be anything that affects like the residential. any of the residents.
No, they don't, all it is transmission lines. It's just electricity coming in and electricity going out of the town. But because they're within the corporate limits, they're required to have a franchise.
Okay.
Are there any other comments? I asked the city clerk if there were any written comments or objections that you've received. There being no further comments or objections on this matter, I will close the public hearing at 6:59 PM. Motion to approve initial reading of an ordinance on granting of the franchise to operate an electric transmission utility within the city of Keokuk, Iowa. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Crenshaw,
Aye.
Garcia, Wynn, Hallenthal,
Aye.
Andrews,
Aye.
Marston,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald,
Aye.
Do we have a motion to adopt? We have a motion to adopt and give final approval to
No.
the ordinance.
So at this time, you'd ask if they want to waive.
Oh,
the
we got to wait, make sure if we want to, do we have a motion to waive the second and third reading on this?
Third reading. Already had them.
So move.
I got,
Wait a minute. Just got to ask for a second because we got a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Now you can say something.
on this ordinance for the,
We're not there yet.
oh, I'm sorry.
We're still on
Okay.
the transmission lines.
We're still on the electric transmission utility. And we're asking, do we have
Oh, I'm sorry.
to waive the second and third reading of the ordinance?
I thought we moved on. I'm
No,
sorry.
we're
Okay.
still at that. That's
Right.
why,
So we're still on ITC.
yes. Do we have a motion to waive this?
Yes, they did.
And they did. Okay. If yes, we need a roll call on that.
Crenshaw,
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Wynn, Hallenthal,
Aye.
Andrews.
Aye.
Marston.
Nay.
Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald,
Aye.
Motion approved.
I need a motion to adopt.
I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Okay, motion to,
Wait,
Second.
need a second?
In a second.
Need a second.
we need a second, I think. Okay. That's it. Do we need to vote on this one too?
Yes.
Okay, but we don't need a roll call.
No,
Okay,
All in favor?
let's just, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay,
Now it's UTV.
That was on the other one.
we are on
Again.
agenda number 9, motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance adding new chapter 9.90 regarding operation of the off-road utility vehicles and golf carts. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
I need a roll call. Discussion.
Okay, so the ordinance will allow UTVs and golf carts to operate on certain city streets with certain requirements. All vehicles under this ordinance would be required to obtain a city permit. The ordinance does have a sunset of March 31st, 2023. Continuation of the ordinance would require further action at that time. And I'm summarizing quite a bit.
Any more comments?
I looked at this because after we went the second, third reading last week, and I looked at this ordinance that made up, and there's a lot of things that I'm concerned about. One's got to do with safety. I talked to Pam. She had me go talk to Chief Hinton. Chief's concerns is safety, because we're taking an off-road vehicle and putting it on roads. I think we talk tires and population of the city, because this city has a traffic population equal to a town of 25,000. That's a safety issue. If it was passed the way this ordinance is wrote up, the people that live in Indian Hills could not come downtown in Keokuk because of the restrictions. There's no place for them to cross Main Street. They could go to Walmart, but they couldn't cross Main Street because they couldn't get to a crossing on 14th and Main. They can't go out the highway and because they can't be on, they can only be on gravel roads in the county. So the Indian Hills people cannot come downtown. The other one, I'm asking why is 18th and 13th Street and Grand Avenue can't be traveled on? Does anybody know that?
Go ahead.
So when the committee actually met, that was the code revision committee, there was a survey sent out and requesting any information on.
Sent out to who?
To the code revision committee.
Okay.
When this was
Okay.
being reviewed. The survey asked various questions of what they would like to see in the ordinance, streets that they would like to see, the crossings that they would like to see. That was based on a map that was submitted by Tony Arrowood, I believe. They didn't want people to be able to cross anywhere on every.
Who's they?
I'm sorry?
Who's they didn't want people to cross?
The actual code committee. When I'm
Okay,
saying they, I'm
okay,
going to say
okay.
code committee. They did not want people to cross on
I understand
every
that.
street.
Yeah.
And then it was just ask what streets that they would be allowed to cross on, what streets they'd prefer them not to travel on. That information came back as such. So after that came back, I sent it back out to the committee to see if everybody was in agreement. No one
So you think it's right that somebody that lives in Indian Hills can't
That-
travel downtown?
I'm not saying it is or it isn't, Steve. I'm just saying
Well,
that this is
Do
what
you think
was
maybe this ordinance should
submitted.
be looked at again before we vote on it?
You guys can amend it to add the messenger plank crossing
And
at,
if you can't travel on 18th, where can you cross on it? On Main Street, you can cross at 2nd, 4th, 6th, 9th, and 14th. 7th Street, you can cross.
I didn't make
places.
up the
18th
ordinance.
Well, but I'm asking these
I-
questions, they gotta be
yeah.
answered by somebody.
Councilmember, I think that what it is Pam is conveying what the committee, and so really I think the questions need to be addressed or are towards the committee members that were there rather than.
Well, the committee has changed, I'm on the code.
Right, but there are members of the code revision committee, the previous code committee that are here. And I think the questions have to be presented to them to answer because,
Well,
okay.
the reason for 13th and 18th were because they're probably the most traveled crossing. Main Street.
Not according to the police chief, he says 10th Street's one of the most unsafe streets.
Well, I think that
Didn't you say that?
definitely is, but it does have a stoplight.
I think Councilperson Garcia's comment was different. You're correct on what I said. My concerns about crossing on Main Street were only at streets that weren't. Thank you. And that was put out to the council people that were on the code revision committee at the
Right,
time.
right. Mhm.
I think what Councilperson Garcia is saying is that, correct me if I'm wrong, that the committee felt that 13th and 18th Street were the busiest streets, maybe not necessarily the most unsafe crossing,
Yeah,
but the
yeah,
busier
not
street.
the most unsafe. It was where most cars are going to cross from south to the,
Well,
Or
I
my
might agree
concern-
with 13th, but 17th is busier than 18th.
well, just for,
my opinion.
and you could be right. I just know that that was the conversation for 13th and 18th. Grand must have been, I think, a personal, it wasn't for mine. I didn't have anybody who spoke out about it. But again, all members of the code revision were able to say, hey, I had a constituent who didn't want this street. I just this week had,
Because maybe somebody lived on Grand and didn't like it, or what?
it
Well,
very well
Grand,
could have
Grand
been.
Avenue, Grand Avenue is part of like the scenic route, or what's the official term where it's like part of the tourism? You
the
know?
cultural,
Part of
well,
the
it's
whole,
the,
yeah, the whole stretch of
is
it is
part of the
and
cultural entertainment,
There's
yeah.
the signs up about the scenic route for tourists. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but if you have tourists coming to town, I don't know, maybe you don't want golf carts on there.
If you got, I mean, if they're going to be on our streets, they're supposed to be safe.
I would just assume it was a personal preference. Councilmember Andrews, somebody has submitted that and they put it in the ordinance at a request of a council person. I don't know why Grand is on there. I did say 13th and 18th simply because you do see so many
So
cars
if you
crossing there.
Leave 13th and 18th, can you cross them at any intersection then?
I'm sorry.
Can you cross them at any intersection? It says you can't be on 18th Street and 13th Street.
Yes, you can cross, like if you were on or not High, that's a bad example. Palin, you can go across 18th and across 13th. You just can't go down them.
Right, so you can cross on any intersection on them streets,
Yes,
not like Main Street and 7th Street.
yes.
That should be put in there.
I think that it is.
I didn't read it.
Would-
It is in there. It's on the second page.
Could you, too long, we can read it? to me?
It is. It's under 9.90.04 subsections 2 and 3. Subsections 2 covers golf carts, and the streets are identical to subsection 3, which covers the UTVs. So the language may be confusing because it talks about primary road extension crossings,
Yeah,
and that would be our main street. So
and 7th Street.
Correct.
yes, correct. So on Main Street, it says that you can cross at 2nd, 4th,
Yes,
5th, 6th, 8th, 9th, and 14th Streets.
yes, I read that.
And your concern is that Carbide Lane, Main needs to be added, correct?
No, my concern is if you was on 8th, if you couldn't cross, it didn't say that you could cross any intersection on 18th or 13th. It just said you couldn't go on them streets. And it don't say that you can cross them at every intersection on that street.
This is just like the county, how it's on gravel road, unless you come to a paved one, you can get onto the paved road. You just have to turn off on the nearest gravel road.
To maybe clarify things just a little bit. You can cross those streets, but you can't turn onto them and drive on them.
I understand that, but
Right.
it don't say that.
It's
But
implied,
it says it on Main Street and then it says it on
Right.
7th Street.
right? And the only,
13th and 18th both have lights,
I'm taking what the intent was, I believe, of the committee, was that they wanted to restrict the number of places that you could cross at Main Street as our busiest street. If you took just simply, I understand, okay,
just said
but if you took just simply the code that Iowa code and translated it into an ordinance for us, under Iowa code, you can't be on a highway, but you can cross it.
But there was discussion that they didn't want, and I realize 13th and 18th have stop lights,
Mhm.
but they don't want people crossing where there are not stoplights. 13th and 18th, they did
That's what the
state.
chief.
I think what Councilperson Andrews is saying is that because of, if the code is interpreted literally, it means that you can never be on 13th
18th
or
Street.
18th
Yeah.
Street, meaning that it would be illegal according to the code to even cross it. So it could be amended very simply if you
Yeah,
want
by
that language to be
crossing.
clear, that under that subsection 4 on page 3, that you could put in language or insert language that says that it can't be operated on 18th, 13th, or Grand Avenue unless crossing.
That would work.
Something very simple like that.
Mhm.
Am I correct in what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would work. Then also there's the size of the one we couldn't put on the ATV, the first, it says that it could be a 1,000 cc, and it said a moped could be a 300 cc, but it gives no motor size for the UTV. So in other words, you could have as big as motors you wanted on a UTV because it don't give a size.
I thought the UTV was 1,000. When they were here talking the last time, they had asked to make sure it said up to, because they thought 1,000 was the max.
1,000, it says it in the code that was written, the ATVs, but it don't say anything about the UTV.
There shouldn't be ATVs on there.
ATVs are defined, but they are not allowed.
Yeah.
So it defines what an ATV is and then says it's not allowed on any part of this ordinance. The golf carts are the 300 cc limit, like Councilperson Andrews is saying. And then the UTVs, I'm not well versed on how they categorize UTVs. This is language provided by legal counsel. They are broken into 3 different categories. And instead of classifying them by CCs, they classify them by overall weight. So it gives like an A, B, and a C. So I don't know if that is common to classify it by weight. I don't own one,
Okay.
That-
so I'm not sure.
That actually came
I
from
just thought they
state
should be
code.
classified too.
That come from state code.
The state code has the weight, I believe, yeah.
I'm glad we're going to be able to tweak this in a year because obviously it's getting to be
So,
confusing. So I'm glad we've got this grandfather clause in here or whatever, or sorry,
well, I'm not
sunset
voting for it
clause
this year.
where we can come back and tweak it if we need to.
And then there's still a question about Indian Hills.
Is that not going to be the same as it would be like on the county? You get on and you have to immediately get off at the first option?
We don't have any language that specifies
say
that,
that.
but I think you can make that if the council chooses to make those amendments to, I think what
They'd
Pam
have to
said
be-
earlier.
It has to be able to cross at
Carbide.
Carbide Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plank Road.
So you could make this with a couple of amendments to include Carbide Lane and then the crossing of 13th, 18th on that separate paragraph.
And I also talked about the safety part of it. We're okay in an off-road vehicle to be on the streets of Keokuk. Cole talked to me earlier about that and said, I guess we're covered if there was an accident and somebody sued the city saying, well, you okayed us to be in an off-road vehicle on a street in the city of Keokuk. And the tires, tires are supposed to be run on concrete? I mean, I don't know that. I'm asking,
Yeah, so
you know.
my understanding again, and I'm not well versed in the UTV because I don't own one, but my understanding is that the tires are specific to the conditions that you operate them under. I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's what I've been told. And you are supposed to follow manufacturer's recommendations on that. And usually we have a couple guys in the audience that
Yeah,
are
well,
well
that's-
versed with that. Of course, they're not here tonight to
Right, yeah.
answer that question, but.
But I just seen them things and I would just,
So my question to the council is, do we want to review the amendments and vote on an amendment tonight? Or would you rather have staff, table the motion to approve, have staff go back and incorporate those amendments and vote on it at the next meeting?
I'd rather vote on it next time when it's written properly.
Are we at what reading of this ordinance?
This is the second reading, so you can amend the second reading. You can amend the third reading, but you have to go back to the second reading. Okay, so we're okay to amend, and then just come back and do the second reading. So if that's if council's pleasure is to have staff go back and incorporate those amendments, there would just need to be a motion to table.
I do think that if anybody has any suggestions or personal feelings about streets, then now would be the time before the next meeting.
I don't agree with Grand Avenue. I think if the vehicles or if the UTVs are allowed on the streets in the city of Keokuk, they should be allowed on all of them, except in the cases where it's not safe to be on there, like Main Street, 7th Street, and if somebody determines a street as being a busy street, but I don't understand Grand Avenue.
So do we have a motion to table? Do we have a motion to amend? What are we going to do, guys?
I'll make a motion to table.
So we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Yay.
So I
Been
would like,
tabled.
I'm sorry, I would like to ask the council on the amendments. Do you want Grand Avenue taken off before we actually?
Can I say no? Because I think it's part of the historical district, and if somebody was adamant about not having it on there, then maybe they had a reason, and we should find out what it was.
That's right.
I don't know who it was, but
Okay.
we
I mean,
can't
that's
make
fine.
assumptions
I just-
on what their reason was, so I'd like to hear what it was.
Okay,
So if we can only drive these vehicles 25 mile an hour on any street in the city of Keokuk, I don't see what it'd be harm for them to be on Grand Avenue. It's just like any other street.
I don't know what the reason was behind any of it, but just keep in mind that in the summertime, there's, the pavilion has their bands in the park, and you might want to take your kids up to the park to play on your golf cart and that kind of stuff. So kind of might want to rethink the Grand Avenue thing. I don't have one, so it's not going to matter to me, but if I would want to go to the pavilion and listen and take my golf cart and go home after it was over, that's, Grand Avenue. And so we might want to think about
well, is there a
what
consensus?
what the purpose is.
Is there a consensus of the council one way or another?
Well, the people that came to the meeting wanting this, they aren't people you're going to have trouble with or problem with. They were honest people that thought they had a recreational use for these vehicles, maybe save some gas instead of, and a lot of them said that they got in and out of them a lot easier than what they did a car. And they weren't going to break the law. I even asked them, I said, they're going to have to help us police this because we only got 3 or 4 policemen on the streets at a time. They're running all over town now and we can't catch them. And we probably aren't going to, those people probably still going to do it. But, it is a heck of a responsibility if they go out there and don't take it seriously and somebody gets hurt. And I voted for this, and I'm going to, that I will feel somewhat responsible for it. But they're not going to quit coming. If we vote it down, they're going to be back here real quick, and they're going to keep at it till we do something. So we maybe try to get an ordinance that we think will control it and try it for a year and see what happens.
So I think and Pam and I can make the corrections, so I just want to be clear on the corrections that the council wants. So the first one is to include Carbide Lane / Plank Road as a crossing for the primary road extension. Are there any others on South 7th Street that need to be included? Okay. And then the second one would be to include except across or similar language on North 18th, South 18th, and North 13th, South 13th Street. And then the last question is what Pam just asked. Sounds like Grand Avenue is going to be a decision for the council to make. How do we handle that? Does the council have to vote on that, Cole?
We
Or
can make it now.
Well, I think that I think that what we need to do as staff is go back and ask the members of the code review
Revision
committee that were
committee.
there as to their reasoning for Grand Avenue and be able to have a full explanation for the council at the next meeting.
Steve does bring up a good one because Indian Hills, if they're going to have one there, they're going to have to go down the highway 4 or 5 blocks.
they can cross it South Navajo, come back on the Carbide, and then cross it Carbide, Main on the Plank.
But once you get on Carbide Lane, where are you going to go?
Over across.
Gosh, on the
Plank.
plank.
Back on the Plank towards the swimming pool, right there by the barber shop.
That road goes through still?
Well, they would cross South Navajo Drive runs, you know where the school bus barn is?
Yeah.
It cuts back behind,
Comes up by the ready mix.
Trelex, MMC, winds
Back
back
in there by
through
Oak
there.
Meadows?
No,
No, it comes out of Indian Hills, straight across the highway, and goes to the backside between the Sunset Cemetery and Trelex. It goes right through there,
road actually comes out across from the ready mix is where the road
Yes.
comes out.
on the
Oh,
other
okay.
end, yeah.
I think it might also be helpful that next time staff would have a map of at least that area to show what the route would be.
I think it'd be good to have a handout, a brochure, a map or something when these people get these permits, because their first thing you're gonna say is, I didn't see that. You guys changed things so many times. I can't even keep up with what we're changing now. I don't even know what roads we can cross and can't cross and drive on and can't drive on. So I think we better make it useful for the ones that get the permits to at least have a somewhat clear for them, because it ain't clear for me.
The users, there is a map that was given to Pam at one of the first code revision committee meetings, and it was actually provided by the people that are requesting the use of UTVs and golf carts on the street. So those people are they're probably more familiar with it than we are. But the map is there. With these changes, we'll make a few corrections to that map. And it was a pretty small map, so I don't know if there's something we could do to make it better, maybe in a
Is this
brochure
map-
form. Yes. If we can make that a little bit better, we'll see if we can work on that.
You know, the ones that came to the meeting and asking for it, I don't think they're gonna have a problem with this. It's the other 25 that come out of the woodwork that, oh, you included
Right.
golf carts, you included this,
Yeah.
you included that. Now you're gonna have all them, and they're not up to any codes because this is the first time I've ever done it. First town they've ever lived in that did it.
Yeah, they seemed like they were a pretty tight-knit community that anytime there was an issue, they would rally on Facebook. So they were, even though they may not have come to all of the meetings together, they were in communication with each other. But your point's right on. We'll get something that's brochure form maybe.
Okay, so that's been tabled. Can we move on to item number 10? Here we go. Consider resolution approving agreement with Community Action of Southeast Iowa. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
As part of the ARPA allegations, the council pledged $32,000 to Community Action of Southeast Iowa to assist in paying sanitation portion of delinquent water sewer billings. Community Action started a program this year to assist low and moderate income residents in paying the utility bills. However, the funding source for the program does not cover sanitation. The program is restricted to a one-time assistance only. Community Action will be required to submit reports on the use of the funds on an annual basis.
I have a question. When we were talking about this, we mentioned that if they didn't spend all of the money, that we could have it in the agreement where they would give it back to the city. And one of the examples you used was maybe if a year now, the program wasn't in effect anymore, and there was like 30,000 left over, that it would come back to us. But I don't see that in the agreement. It just says on there that if they violate the agreement with us, that they have to give the money back. But it doesn't say anything in there about if they don't use all the funds, that they have to give it back. And I thought that was part of the agreement.
Okay, so that is not, there isn't specific language to that as to, but let me clarify what you are requesting, that there be additional language should their funding end, and if they had any residual funds, that they would send them back.
Yes.
Okay.
So like if their program isn't successful, maybe for some reason, and 6 months from now, it's not in existent anymore, they don't get to keep the money. We talked about that where you said it would come back to us, but that's not written in here.
Yeah, that that didn't make it into my notes to the city attorney. So at this time, with that requested change, I would ask that this item be tabled until we could correct the agreement.
I make a motion for it to be
I'll
tabled.
second it because I want that in there.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item number 11, consider resolution approving supplement agreement with Stanley Consultants to design the belt press project. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
Stanley Engineering is designing the belt press project for the water treatment plant. In order to determine which of the three presses will perform the best for the plant, Stanley is developing a pilot program. Each of the three vendors will be given 1 day to set up and run their press. Results will be evaluated by Stanley on their program criteria. The agreements for the development and implementation of the pilot program, the cost is $164,960, but is included in the total project cost of $1.8 million.
This was a competitive bid.
It's not a bid yet. We are, tomorrow morning, we're going to discuss starting the pilot, getting the pilot programs going. And BDP, it's one of the manufacturers. It's probably going to be the first one. It's going to start in April. And we'll have 3 of them, like we said. And it is part of the $164,960 is part of the bond. It's already approved. And this just basically gets things started.
Are we going to be given the results for each of the companies so that we'll be included in seeing the results for all of them?
Yeah,
You bet it.
yeah, but once they've done the pilot project, then they will present to you, we'll have them present to the council as to the results, and so that they know, because what it is what we pick is what they're going to design for.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different things we'll look at. We look at the robustness of each of the presses, different features, maintenance required on each of them. We already have one of the brands of presses down working right now. So that's going to come into consideration too, you know, parts and that kind of thing. The design is a little bit different, but maybe the rollers are the same. Things like that. Warranties, just so many things to consider.
If anyone hasn't, they should contact Tom for a tour down there. It's incredibly, it's just amazing what they've done down there, and full of knowledge, so you'd learn all about the press.
You bet. I'd be glad to give anybody a tour anytime. Just not right now because it's not looking so pretty with ADM.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Consider resolution appointing Celeste Ellen Fowey as city clerk effective April 1st, 2022 to serve out Jean Ludwig's 2-year term as city clerk. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Jean will be retiring April 1st, 2022, somewhat reluctantly, because that means spending more time at home. Celeste Allen Fowey has been hired to assume the position of city clerk, and the official change would be effective April 1, 2022.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 13, consider resolution disposing of municipality-owned real property located at 518 Main Street by the city of Keokuk, Iowa. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Any discussion?
The city council held a public hearing to dispose of 518 Main Street to Great River Players on February 17th, 2022. It was determined that the area was no longer in an urban renewal district and would need to be disposed of by either competitive bid or sale of no less than fair market value. We received an appraisal on the property in the amount of $13,600. The improvements proposed by Great River Players will far exceed that amount. Costs associated with the sale of the property will be paid by Great River Players.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item number 14, consider resolution authorizing adjustment in sewer charges related to the filling of the swimming pools. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion?
In previous years, the city has granted adjustments to sewer bills for residents filling swimming pools. This is not within our code of ordinances and should be approved by the council annually through a resolution. The adjustment would reduce the sewer charges to the resident's 12-month average, and the adjustments must be requested by the resident prior to the due date of the billing and would be only for the sewer bills incurred within the months of May and June.
I do
Ed,
have,
Go
I
ahead.
do have a question on that. Some of the residents in the past have talked about this same thing for watering their gardens and flowers and things like that. So I wanted to at least bring that up for maybe future discussion.
That, I believe, in the past has been discussed. If the council wants to do that at a future date, just let me know. It's what becomes somewhat difficult with that is that it's easier to determine that somebody filled a pool than if somebody's watering a garden.
Hard to quantify how much you've used too.
Yes.
Maybe we could offer some kind of voucher for rain barrel kind of stuff. If that's something you're looking towards, like capturing rain, into a rain barrel and then using that.
That is another program that I've heard of offering a voucher for people to purchase a rain barrel. Again, if council wants me to pursue it, let me know.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion to approve setting a date for a special meeting to be held March 31st, 2022 at 6 PM relating to the ADM pretreatment process. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion?
An administrative order relating to pretreatment discharge violations was issued to ADM. ADM has appealed that order. In our ordinance, the council acts as the hearing body. Prior to the hearing, staff would like to brief the council on the administrative order, the ongoing situation, and the procedures moving forward. Staff is asking for a special meeting on March 31st at 6 PM.
Any further discussion?
Well, that meeting, that special meeting is just the brief. That's not going to be,
Correct. It's just.
There'll be an
it's-
additional meeting after that. Okay.
It's a briefing to give you the background information and to explain the procedures.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Do we have any boards and commission reports?
Rand Park Pavilion, this is final notification, so a vote is required for Doug Bartholomew, term to expire 10/22/22. He's fulfilling an unexpired term. Joyce Park, Tumulty Commission, final notification, vote required. Brian Keys, term to expire 10/1/2022, again, filling an unexpired term. Final notification, vote required on Board of Adjustment, 5-year term for Teresa Murray, Shelley Altmans, and Jay Cruz, terms to expire 4/1/2027. Veterans Memorial Commission, second notification, no vote required. Grand Theater Commission, first notification, no vote required. And a mayor oil appointment, Historic Preservation Commission, vote required. 3-year term for David Jones, term to expire 9/1/2024. He is filling an unexpired term. So willing to take an omnibus motion to accept our omnibus motion to approve all of the ones requiring votes.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Staff reports.
Anyone?
Our next council meeting, I would like to amend Chapter 5, which is the nuisance health code, mainly just at this point to remove the abatement fees, the penalties. And while doing that, I would like to have a resolution for schedule of administrative penalties. Just to start out with, I would like to just go ahead and put the nuisance fees in there. But I think that this would be a good document for the council to have ongoing for any penalties, so we can kind of keep track of what, instead of just doing resolutions and not adding it to an actual schedule, penalties, fees get lost. So at this point, abatement fees for like grass abatement. Your first offense is $50, your second offense is $75. This was discussed a while back with the council. The first offense, we'd like to change that to $100 plus the abatement fee, and second offense to $200 plus the abatement fee. So if that's okay with the council, I would like to bring that to our next meeting, unless you want further discussion on it. I can hold off and we can discuss it at next meeting, then bring it the following meeting. Any,
I think that sounds great.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I think we discussed this during general fund,
Mhm.
trying to make sure that we're on
Correct.
track and keeping up with it. And I think this is part of
Okay.
that
Okay.
process. So I thank you for putting it together and bringing it forth and
Okay.
look forward to seeing it.
City Planning Commission met last month regarding homeless shelters. Their recommendation for a code change in zoning is to add that for as a special use permit. They've actually, I actually thought that it shouldn't go in anything lower than an R4, which is multifamily. They actually recommended an R3, which is a two-family. So anywhere within the city of Keokuk in an R3 or greater, which an R1 is most restrictive, M2 is the least restrictive, that you could have a homeless shelter with a special use permit. There would be criteria, and that no more than 35 individuals could be per property. Of course, that would be fire code, building codes would have to be looked at for load, occupancy load. So I'm working on that, and we'll be bringing that to you sometime in the near future. I received an email from Iowa Economic Development, the city of Keokuk, along with 94 other applicants for the downtown housing grant. They are moving their grant dates or back to mid-April, so we won't know anything on that. We did that for the 600 block buildings. There were actually 94 applications statewide with grant request of up over 30 million. So that's a very competitive grant, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that the city receives some of that funding.
I was approached by a gentleman last fall. He contacted me about a month ago. He would like to form a group that would be called Friends of the Cemetery. I'm going to read a quick overview here of what he's proposing is for this group. It says, "We are an independent volunteer organization composed of members of the municipal public with an interest in cemetery care, whose activity will primarily involve the cleaning, resetting, repairing of cemetery markers, aka headstones, gravestones. As a small group, our scope will be limited to small-scale projects. As an unofficial affiliate of he's got Public Works, but it should be the city of Keokuk. We will coordinate with the city to refine the scope and particulars of our work." I took this to the park board. The park board did not see an issue with it. My concern is that we would allow a small group of people, no equipment, but they would go in and reset some of the old stones and help with this tombstone tune-up that we do twice a year. This would kind of be in addition to that. They would, if this was allowed, my thoughts are that we would have to be notified prior to them coming to do the work, and kind of have oversight on what their plan was. The park board was in favor of it. What's the commission's feeling or the council's feeling on it?
I think if your oversight is there and you agree with what they're doing, we like volunteers and people being active in the community.
I normally wouldn't ask on a volunteer group, but this is kind of a unique,
Yeah.
where it's a cemetery, the property's owned by somebody besides the city, and so I think that it could be a good thing, but I do think it has to have a lot of control as far as knowing what's going to be done and how they'll go about it. And at any time, it would be put in there that if we wasn't happy with the activity, that it would be stopped because it is on city property.
This issue was brought up a few years ago under another mayor in another lifetime when I was on the council before. and it was shot down because of insurance. Our mayor at the time said that we could not allow that because of insurance. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's
Well,
something we need to check into.
yeah, we can check into it, but what I'll tell you is that, is right now when we do the tombstone tune-up, I mean, it's volunteers out there. Granted, we do have city personnel that assist in that. But I will check on it, but my inclination is that it'd probably be allowed, but I'll check on it.
I mean, I'm not against it. I'm for it.
Sure.
But I'm just saying that
You're being cautious.
this was brought up before, but I think at that time, people were wanting to, mow around.
Well, I don't know if we'd allow the mowing.
I'm
I
not
think
going to
we're just-
allow
these are
it.
just
There
the
will be
tombstones.
no equipment of any kind. If anything's allowed, it will all be, soft brushes, maybe a wire brush to clean up the bottom of a stone to put a bonding, agent in there to repair it. But there will be no equipment, I guaranteed,
Yeah.
brought
I
into the
think
cemetery.
it's a good idea. I mean,
Okay. We'll check into whatever liability that the city might have on that. And if, like I said, it's kind of unique where it's the cemetery and it's other people's property. And I didn't want to even move forward with it unless everybody felt that it was a worthwhile thing to do.
Maybe another option could just be like a hold harmless agreement,
I'm sorry, say that again?
like a hold harmless agreement instead of going the insurance route, because I know we've had to do those before.
Right, and that may be something we
Mhm.
have with the group and
Yeah.
a hold harmless. That's a good idea.
This isn't a big rush thing that I'm trying to get going. We'll look into it and
I think it sounds great.
Okay.
I love it when people step up
Yep.
and, if we're not fixing it and somebody has the skills and the time to do it, we might as well let them.
Second thing, the Second Street, North Second over here, the damage that was done by the contractor last year, weather permitting, will start March 28th. That's all dependent on the weather, but we're going to get the street repaired from Concert Street to the alley between Morgan and Fulton.
I have a quick question for either Robert or Pam. Where are we at with the dog park?
We're waiting on the contractor to come put the fence in. We're waiting on the contractor to come put the fence in. They've been given the okay, and they've been waiting on weather. It's soft as it is right now. There's really
Right.
no way for them to get in there, but everything's a go, just waiting on the fence. Once the fence is put in, there will be other work that'll have to be done. We need to run a water line. We'll have some sidewalk work that'll have to be done. Right now, we don't have any money budgeted for that sidewalk work, so we'll try to do as much as we can in-house. Hopefully, we can do it all, but I've got a lot of projects lined up now, and so
I got a constituent eagerly waiting.
I would say very soon the fence should be put up. Once the fence is up, then it can be used, and we'll just have to add more things to it. The water will be put in, like I said, and potentially another shelter house at some point in time, so.
With that being said, we're still taking donations for it. You can buy your brick and get your dog's name on it or whatever you want. And there's lots of little dog equipment that we can buy. And so it's tax deductible. So if you have a few $100s laying around, hand it to us.
Any other department heads? All right, USDA equity project. I participated in the USDA equity project. This will consist of several meetings with community leaders to discuss how to ensure underprivileged and underserved populations have access to USDA programs. The first meeting was this Tuesday at City Hall. ADM administrative order. You all did receive that, and the explained in the action item. We're still experiencing some problems with ADM right now after their startup last week. They put some very heavy loadings onto us and some other things, so there might be some more things coming down the pike. Legislative items, two committee bills have been introduced that will have impact on cities. The first makes changes to the business property tax credit by making the first $150,000 evaluation subject to the same valuation rollback as residential properties. So essentially, right now, commercial industrial properties are taxed at 90% of assessed value, and that would be dropped if it was done this, and for this current year, it would be dropped to 55%. Currently, businesses would need to apply for the exemption and a credit back to the businesses. Under the new bill, the credit would flow through our budget via a backfill. The Department of Management has an annual allocation of $125 million to fund the credit. However, if the credit ever exceeds the appropriation, the money to the local government would be reduced. And we all know the history with backfill. The legislature giveth and they will taketh away at some point. I contacted both Representative Graber and Senator Reichman. Senator Reichman indicated that he would take a look at the language and get back to me. He has not done so just yet. Representative Graber didn't get my email until after he made a commitment on the bill, but he would be talking with Senator Reichman on being able to perhaps do something in the Senate to amend that bill. The second bill reorganizes local option sales tax and a statewide sales tax. Similar to the original proposal contained within a larger bill, the tax would be collected statewide and redistributed back to cities and counties using the current formula. A companion bill would expand what sales tax applies to. The additional revenue from those monies would fund the I will, and it would come out of the state's 5% tax. While it appears that we will not lose funding, it does take control away from the people, as local option sales tax is always voted in by referendum. I have not heard any movement on that bill at this point. We did receive a response from the EPA to our appeal on the consent order. The good news is that they didn't tell us that we had to go ahead with the plan. What they said is that we are still under the consent order, but we can modify that plan so long as we do some data collection to determine what additional steps can be taken. So the proposal that we're going to be coming up with is to have our engineering firm design a data collection plan that would occur over the next 2 to 3 years. And this would be flows, this would be loadings, all these different things, so that we can go to the EPA and show them that if we did this smaller project here and the smaller project here, we could further reduce. So we're looking at, instead of perhaps $112, $140 million, that we might be down around somewhere around $4 to $10 million with some retention ponds. We still are going to have to do some project, but at a significantly reduced cost. Okay? I will be out of the office next week attending the ICMA Midwest Conference in St. Louis, and that'll be from Tuesday to Friday. And when it comes to the city clerk, I'd like to congratulate Jean on her retirement and thank you for all the years of service, especially the last 4. We'll miss her dedication and insight, though I think she's indicated that she would like something to do at times to not be bored. So she might come down and help us with a few things that need to get done. At the same time, we all look forward to working with Celeste as she has quickly picked up on all the nuances of city government and accounting. That's all I have.
Okay, item number 18, new business.
Madam Mayor, I do have something. Main Street Keokuk Inc. is having their quarterly downtown cleanup on March 26th, Saturday, March 26th, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. So one way to make a really big difference in our community, a positive impact on it, is to help clean up in front of empty storefronts or picking up trash and pulling weeds down there. If you have any small groups that want to get together, you just volunteer. You go to Estes Park and volunteer, and they'll assign you a place and to get going with it. So I just wanted to remind our community, since we won't be meeting between now and then, to go and help volunteer to clean up our downtown.
With that being said, item number 19 is motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Didn't want to get your mouth full of chewing gum.
Could you see it? Right away.
Okay. Hey, Gabe.